Yay, we are live.
Yay!
So, how's Kiki today?
Kiki is amazing. I mean, yesterday was gorgeous. Today is winter. I'm just riding the ebbs and flows of life. How are you doing?
I'm good. Today, the weather here, it's not as bad. So, it's not quite sunny, but at least it's bright and not as dull. So,
Yeah,
feels really good. So, I'm just going to hang on for a little bit till people show up live.
perfect. It's
So,
always
nobody misses anything of, what we are talking. And I can see somebody hop on live. Okay, so now we can get started.
good.
So I can see one people, but I'm sure, lots of people will soon join us. So okay, we have some viewers. Perfect. So if you are watching this live, say a quick hi. If you watch this as a replay, feel free to post any questions that you have. Hello, Uttamji, nice to see you. So if you have any questions, always, make sure you post. And I'm super, super excited. Today's our episode 16 of a Saturday Expert series, and it's a true honor to have Kiki Athanas with us. And it's so amazing. She's doing amazing work. I'm a big fan of her work. She's an ex perfectionist. That's what she calls her, which is amazing. And ex perfectionist, like all she does is, like, guiding light behind you, finding your healthy balance with food. She's also the founder of Adapt Daily Herbal Gummies, which have a lot of Ayurvedic ingredients as well. So, and the chief content officer of Meal Garden. So she does wear quite a few hats. I'm super excited to invite you here, Kiki.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to chat with you. I love all of your content. So it really is such an honor to be here with your beautiful Facebook community and beyond, and all of your online communities.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to say a quick hi to Shane and Vimarsha. Thank you for showing up live. And today we're talking about a really, really interesting topic because, this is something that I see a lot in my clinic. I see a lot of women way into their 80s as well, who are really frustrated and they're struggling from one diet to the other. So they're constantly on a diet bandwagon. They never seem to get off, and they're trying to always look for information as how to diet, not about how to improve their nutrition, but how to diet. And that's why we have Kiki here, who's going to teach us how to free ourselves. And diets can really be prison like, they can be like really um, constraining you a lot. So how did you pick this topic, Kiki, and how did you pick this line of work, rather, is my question.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. It most definitely picked me. I started with an absolute just passion for health and wellness. It started really when I hit puberty, and I put on a little bit of weight, and I was like, oh God, like I don't really feel super comfortable in my body. And when I was about 19, 20, I moved out on my own. I started cooking for myself. I started doing yoga, and I really just immersed myself in the wellness world. And I was like, oh my God, this is so great. I feel so good. I've lost that extra weight. And then it took a turn for the worse because I wanted to almost game the system. I thought, okay, well, I'm eating healthier, I'm working out, I'm getting all of these compliments. How much further can I go? And I was such a perfectionist in all realms of life, and especially when it came to health. And so I thought, oh, this is working really well. Let's up the ante here. Let's eat even healthier. Let's work out even more. And because I was such an A-type and I had such good willpower, it meant that, I'm going to cut this out of my diet. I'm going to make sure I only exercise, in this way all the time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now they have a term for that, and it's called orthorexia. Whether you resonate with that or not, whether you've been on the diet bandwagon, to that degree or not, it's food started to consume my life rather than sustain my life, which is what it was meant to do, right? And I remember I eventually sought therapy for it. And I remember the therapist looking at me and she was like, Kiki, if you keep this up, you're going to start binging because you're so restrictive with your diet. It will backfire. And I remember looking at her and just thinking like, this woman doesn't understand how much I care about, being healthy and skinny, like as if I would ever start binging. But the truth of the matter is, with deprivation eventually comes binging, overeating. When you're conditioned under this deprivation mindset, you need more in order to satisfy, and you never really are able to satisfy. And that's really where it took me. I was binge eating. I felt like all I was doing was either completely restricting myself or completely overeating and eating things that I wouldn't even like in large quantities. And I just felt chaotic. And I tried the intuitive eating thing, but it just didn't work for me. It didn't feel structured enough. And I eventually came across this process, which now I share with others through my own coaching, which really helped me to harness my gut hunger and satiety cues and really trust the internal boundaries of my body, rather than be on this endless hunt for the external answers and external boundaries, and sort of like trying to figure out how to eat and what not to eat and what to eat. And it took me out of my body, and it ended up causing me health problems. It ended up, I ended up gaining weight, even though I was trying to do the opposite. And once I found this system and it really turned things around for me, I shared it with friends and family, because who doesn't know someone that's, has been on the diet bandwagon before, or is struggling with weight loss. And then I started doing circles, and then I basically, carved out part of my professional career to really hone in on it, because I feel like this work is quite unique, and it really does work.
So what are some challenges you think with intuitive eating? Because, I love what you say. And I remember there's one conversation we had in your group, where we were talking about healthy versus unhealthy sweets. And that is really true, like for the 9 days of Navratri, like every single day, I make offerings. And in India, like in my culture, it's always sweet offerings, every festival, right from like the Ganesh festival starts September-ish. And then throughout the half of the year, you have festivals pretty much all the time, And festival celebrations signify sweetness, right? They signify sugar-laden, dairy products, which are delicious. But I looked at it as an unhealthy piece, and I love the way you said that, don't look at it as a healthy versus an unhealthy option, just try to reframe, your mindset around it. And if you would talk more about it, I would absolutely love that.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you for asking. And first of all, I've got to say so I've got to ask a question. Does it always start usually in September, October, like around this kind of time of the year?
August, September-ish, because we follow the lunar calendar. And we have the elephant-headed god Ganesha, who sets the tone for all the festivals. So once you start with Ganesha festival, all the festivals start rolling after that.
Gotcha. And I just find it interesting that they're incorporating more sweets and dairy in as the season becomes cooler, right? Which is normal. We kind of want those heavier foods, and we want those sweet foods. And so, they've got it right. The reframe that I would offer for those that are, and soon enough we'll be launching into the holiday season for most people, with the holidays, and I never know what to call it to be politically correct. So we all know what I'm talking about, the 25th. I don't want to offend anyone. But there is that anxiety around like, oh my goodness, like it's sweet. There's going to be dairy. There's going to be all of these things that we have come to understand as unhealthy. And the thing is, I hate that term, healthy choices or healthy choices, because really, healthy choices, it's an oxymoron, because if it's not your choice, then it's not healthy. It's more like healthy demands or like healthy, rules, which are not healthy, right? And so I think the first step for someone who is, using your case as an example of, being a little bit weary or cautious of what might be, quote unquote unhealthy, and really opening up total choice. And if you knew that, I can have as many of these or as much of this as I like for the rest of my life, because we all have our entire lives to eat delicious food, right? It kind of takes the anxiety off of like, oh, okay, so maybe I'll have one, you know what I mean? And enjoy it and then move on with my life, right?
Yeah.
But we go into it with the mindset of like, oh my God, I'm gonna like, I need to pace myself. And like, I don't know if I should have that or I shouldn't have that. We're bringing that fear into it. And when our thoughts create our behaviors, our emotions, our thoughts can create the fear, which can create the inflammation, which means that, you know, not digesting the food. And I know that you talk a lot about this with the mindful eating. So just switching the mindset to, yeah, and I can always have whatever it is I want in however much, you know, quantity. And while some people listening might think, oh my God, but then I would eat all the sugar or eat all the sweets and that's not going to be good. Really, if you knew at your truest heart that like I could have as much as I want of whatever I want for the rest of my life, then you're not going to feel the need to overeat, and you're actually going to enjoy that sweet that you choose, and then you're going to be satisfied. And then what I love about this process is then you're going to be able to go and enjoy your life afterwards, because I know that my whole life for like almost 10 years was consumed with thinking about eating, thinking about not eating, or eating. And it's like, once you get rid of, you know, and you're just actually eating when you're hungry, you realize like, wow, I have so much time to live life when I'm not just like thinking about what I'm going to be eating or thinking about what I was eating or thinking about, you know what I mean? It's like your life opens up.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I grew up in like a family, you know, where we always thought of food all the time, and I'm a really good cook too, so that helps. I can recreate a lot of the recipes. Now, going back to intuitive eating, you know, the challenge is most people feel disconnected with themselves, right? We talk about, okay, follow your intuition when it comes to eating, listen to your hunger cues or listen to your body. But a lot of the clients I work with are completely disconnected from their bodies. So it is a huge struggle for them to even find that intuition when it comes to eating, right? So what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, that's such a big one, because you hear it all the time, you know, oh, well, eat what you want, or follow your gut, follow your
Yeah.
intuition. And that sounds so airy-fairy. And I know for me, it was kind of like, no, 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 no. Tell me specifically what I need to do, because I am so disconnected. And so I'll give you some practical tips. First of all, own your choices to eat. And how you can do that is, you know, pen to paper. Every time you eat, it's not a matter of writing down what you're eating, but checking in with, am I hungry? And I use the hunger scale with my clients. 0 to 10, 0 being, you know, you are completely empty. There is no gas in the tank. We hardly ever get to 0. 10 being, you know, I have stuffed myself. I'm probably just going to be sick. And we need to be at a 5 or below. Ideally, we want to be between around a 2 or 3 before we start eating. And so just that practice of, you know, everyone listening here today, for the next week, commit to only eating when you're at a 2 or a 3. That means that you're actually hungry. That means that there's some belly grumbling. The feeling of real hunger is a little bit different for everyone, but there's usually a little bit of a sound in there. It's not a super uncomfortable, horrible, you know, like, oh my God, this is so painful or anything like that. But there's a hunger call. And think about when you were young, right? And you were hungry. Was it this like intense, you know, catastrophic feeling? No, it was a call to refuel, right? And so actually getting conscious and knowing that before you put anything in your mouth, you need to be truthful with yourself, grab your pen and actually write down, where am I at right now between 0 to 10? And if you know, find yourself about to, you know, pop that muffin or something in your mouth, and then you're like, oh no, I have to go right down, and then you actually check in and I'm like, you know what, I'm at a 5 right now. I'm spacious, I'm balanced, I can go forward into my life, but I am reaching for food for another reason. And then that's where the work comes in, because really life is hard. eating is simple, right? And so that's the work. It's not the food, it's the life. But it all kind of gets jumbled up. And so we really need to start, untangling those two.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Life is hard, eating is really simple. It's
Really.
often confused the two. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's perfect. I'm going to say a quick hi to Linda. There's someone from the Facebook group. I can't see your comments on StreamYard, so I'm sorry, but I'm saying hi to you. And hi, Darshana. Nice to see you. Um, Thank you, Linda, for your wonderful comment. Yeah, thank you so much.
I love you too, Linda.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So we talk about, like using food as a drug in today's world. It's the cheapest, most easily available drug, and it is one of the most abused anti-anxiety drug is what we talk about, But even besides anxiety, there are lots of reasons people eat, which I'm sure you come across in your, one-on-one work with clients. So what are some reasons, like why are people using food, um, yeah.
Oh my goodness, so many. And I'd love to walk through at least 3 or 4. But before I do that, you mentioned something, the wording was really interesting, using food as a drug. And I do just want to mention one thing, because I hear it all the time. And I'm sure you hear it like 7 times every day. I'm addicted to sugar. I have a sugar addiction, right? And I always like to grab that for what it's worth and really reframe, you do not have a sugar addiction, okay? If you had a sugar addiction, then if I said to you, okay, all you can eat for the next 2 weeks is sugar or sugary foods, right? You would come back at the end of the 2 weeks and you'd be like, please give me some savory food, right? Like, I don't want any sugar anymore. Just give me a break, right? And if that was true, and if you actually had a sugar addiction, then at the end of those 2 weeks, you would actually come to me and be like, oh my God, now I need more sugar. My tolerance has decreased. And, now I need 10 times more sugar than I did before I started the 2 weeks. So it's not that you're addicted to sugar. You like sugar, and that's fine. Like, it's a sweet thing. So really, again, catching yourself and catching these turnarounds of like, oh my God, I have a sugar problem. And instead being gentle with yourself and being like, I like sugar. That's okay. Like, what are the thoughts that come up within you when you say, I like sugar? Is there shame in there? Is somewhere along the line, did you learn that liking sugar made you less of a person, or what's attached to that? Because that's what we need to dissect, not like, oh my God, let's put you on a cleanse. Let's put you on a detox of like, okay, 70 days, no sugar. Like, that's not the answer. There's something behind there, right? And so in terms of, but you absolutely, I won't disregard that. Yes, we're using food and perhaps oftentimes sugary foods to move through life rather than for what it's worth. So the only time that we need to eat, and food serves really one purpose, and it's to care for the physical body. And the bonus is that it should be enjoyable, right? Anytime you're not using food to care for the physical body, AKA you're at a point where you can't actually move forward in your life because you need to refuel. That's what it's for. And if you're ever using food and eating when you're not at that state, then yes, you're using it for something else. Some of the most common, eating as transition. So how many times have you perhaps come in from running an errand outside, and then you're about to go jump on your laptop to maybe, see some clients, but there's that feeling of I gotta have a snack, or let me just go to my pantry and grab a little something, right? And we use food as a way to kind of break up our day, give ourselves some rest, kind of give ourselves a break, when really our bodies just need time to catch up with our speedy brains that want to go boom, boom, you're going to do this, then I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do that. Except our bodies can't keep up because they're like, oh my God, I'm tired. We need a little bit of time. So food is a really convenient in-betweener that'll give us that time so that our bodies can catch up with our next task, and we can still feel like I'm doing something. There's an intensity happening. I'm chewing, I'm getting pleasure, I'm still in the boom, boom, boom doing mode, right? And so instead, it's taking it down, and sometimes clients will be like, oh, what should I do in between? And they're ready to write it down, what do you suggest? And I'm like, sit there, twiddle your thumbs, look out the window. Like, you just need a little break, right? Maybe it's go lie down, take a nap. So that's one. Eating as transition, eating as avoidance. We often eat to avoid someone, something that we have to do. And I like to use the kind of analogy. It's like, okay, this person has a problem or a thing that they don't want to do and that they want to avoid. And then this person also has a thing or, a person that they want to avoid. This person just stuffed themselves, and now they also have that problem and that thing that they want to avoid, and then they're stuffed. And this person didn't, and then they have the problem that they want to avoid. It's like, which one do you want to be? Like, either way, you're going to have the thing, right? You can be the thing that's stuffed, or you can be the thing that isn't stuffed, right? But it's almost like we want to buffer from that thing. We want to dilute the problem, because it's like, okay, now I can focus on the fact that I'm a little bit stuffed, or that I'm full, or now I can waste some time feeling guilty about what I just ate. Now I can sort of reshift to this new problem that's maybe a little bit less intense than the real problem that I'm avoiding. Other ones, I'm trying to think, like eating as achievement, eating as, I'm going to have a healthy meal. I'm going to nourish myself. I'm going to, or, to kind of almost impress yourself or to impress others. That's more on the perfectionism side. And honestly, it doesn't matter if it's biodynamic, kale that you're eating. If you're eating it and you're not chemically prepared to digest it, AKA you're not hungry, then it's not a healthy choice, and it's not going to, raise your status in life. It's really about being responsible to yourself and to your body.
Yeah, I love that, that seeing food for what it is as food, rather than, looking at as a rescue from, difficult emotions, or people have weird things around food, the more people you see. And I'm saying with all the love, I'm not talking with, a place of judgment, because I've used food for multiple reasons before I knew better. And still sometimes, like, I know better, but I don't always do better all the time, right? So there's a difference between knowing and doing. So totally guilty of that. But when you really focus on your hunger, which is, your digestive fire, your agni, that's where the transformation happens. I wanted to add one more point. There was a nutritionist I interviewed for my mental health summit. And one of the examples that she gave for emotional eating was, as a victory eating for moms. So you just got through a really busy day. You didn't have any support. And at night time, now that, your kids are in bed, you've just done everything you wanted to do the day, and then you take a tub of ice cream and you start eating it, so it's like, okay, I'm victorious, I deserve this, sort of, right? So
yeah, and it's so interesting how a lot of people suffer with the overeating or making poor choices towards the end of the day rather than at the start. Oftentimes you can kind of start out and like, yeah, I'm going to listen to my hunger cues. And whenever I give the prompts to, wait till hunger, most people can do it for breakfast, and they'll take themselves to a point of balance. And then it's like everything's going well. But as we, move through our sometimes stressful days, where our non-value-based beliefs in the gut start chiming in, and they're really disconnecting ourselves from that gut wisdom. And just like you said, reaching for the tub of ice cream, I would offer in that case, are they owning the decision to have some ice cream at the end of the day? Because I bet you in 50% of cases or more, there's a, almost this mindlessness around, okay, like I just want to make myself feel better, seeing the ice cream, and then not even really making the conscious choice to like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and have some ice cream right now because I really feel like it. I really like this ice cream. You know what? I'm going to do it. And rather than approaching it from that, they're probably, I'm just going to have like a little bit of a nibble. Like, how many times have you went to go like, I'm just going to have like a little nibble, and then eat 10 times more than you would have if you would have just dished yourself out a bowl, right? And so we can't own our stop if we don't own our start. So just simply being like, you know what, I'm gonna dish out myself a nice bowl of ice cream. And I know you've spoken to like the power of even presentation, and put it in a really beautiful bowl, and maybe put some music on and be like, you know what, I'm gonna really enjoy this ice cream. And then maybe you would just have that one portion that you need. It would satisfy, and you'd go to bed rather than, oh my God, I just had a whole tub of ice cream and I don't even remember having it. Like, I don't even remember enjoying it because it was just like,
Yeah, no, that's so true. Yeah, so I can see Rajagopal is here. Hi, and a Facebook user says, great topic. I love the emphasis on conscious living. Yes, so true. So for those watching us live, please let us know what are some reasons behind hunger that you are eating or you have eaten in the past for, So if you have any unique reasons why you're eating, like I totally used to eat out of avoidance, because you don't want to do something and you're like, oh, I'll just have this meal and then I'll finish the work, and the work never gets done because you're too full. Then you're uncomfortable. Then you feel sleepy. So
right?
yeah,
Exactly.
talking to
I used to do it even, while working. I would just, I remember in university, I'm gonna study, so need to have a snack, of course, like at the ready, or like, while I'm working. And I think now in COVID days, a lot of people are on Zoom meetings and they have, their bowl of whatever next to them, and they're fusing movement of life and eating. And if there's one thing that you take away from today, it's food is a break from your life. And if you are infusing the movement of your life with food, it is very difficult to, getting back to your question around tapping into your hunger cues and tapping into your intuition. If your life is just, intertwined with food all the time, how do you expect yourself to be able to figure out if you're hungry or not, right? And so really separating those two and, owning your choice to eat and separating that from the rest of your life is so key, so that you can start to master, those cues and that understanding.
Yeah. And then there could also be some other reasons. Like I had an interesting case, where a client mentioned that he was drinking a lot of wine
Okay.
every night, and then he would end up binging later in the night, after 2 to 3 hours. And it was his blood sugar dropping in response to the alcohol intake, which had increased over, COVID. And the one thing is, COVID is challenging. Like we're still in the pandemic. We still haven't found ways how to cope with it. Everybody has what we call a pandemic fatigue now, where people are just tired and exhausted of the pandemic being just there.
Totally. Hearing about it, right? I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, so that's why, people find. So if people are struggling with these habits, what are some suggestions they can change? I know you're giving us a lot of amazing tips right from the starting, using a hunger scale 1 to 10 and always eat if it's, less than 5, is one strategy. Do you have any more strategies for our listeners?
I do. I'm going to say a strategy that is going to really blow a lot of people's minds and make people feel uncomfortable. And that, because I love those. And that is, I hinted at it earlier, opening up total and complete choice. If you have any rules or restrictions around your eating, then that is interference. It's interference with your ability to trust your body. If you have any sort of mental chatter around nutrition, or, I need to make healthy choices, or can't eat that, I need to eat more of this, et cetera, I lovingly invite you to throw it all out and to trust your body. And again, it's, and then what comes up is, but I can't trust my body. Bring yourself back to the 2 boundaries. We have 2 boundaries that all of us were born with. It's like this amazing operating system in our body that tells us if we're hungry or not, and what we feel like. And it's called our stomach. And our stomach lives in our gut. It doesn't live in our head. And yet we're all like searching for all the answers in our head and blah, blah, blah. And unfortunately, because our head doesn't have a stomach, which has boundaries, which has the feeling of I'm full or I'm hungry, we have to think about it all the time. So opening up total choice, it's just like, Manjiri, what's your favorite grocery store?
Right now, Sunripe.
Sunripe? Oh,
yeah, Sunripe. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so if you were to walk in, later today after this wonderful little interview we're doing, and they said, you know what, Manjiri, everything is on the house. You can have whatever you want at the grocery store. I'm sure that you would get a couple carts and you'd be like, okay, let's go, right? Like, let's stock up. And then you go tomorrow and they say the same thing. And you'd be like, okay, you'd probably still stock up, right? But eventually on 2 months later, every day you've been going and every day they're like, stock up, you'd be like, I think I'm just going to take what I need, right? And it's the same with our bodies and with total choice. Yeah, there might be a period when if you've restricted yourself from bagels for the past 10 years, yeah, you might, have 10 bagels in a week, right? But eventually you're going to be like, you know what, I'll just have a bagel the next time I feel like a bagel. And that's really the key. And to recognize anytime I'm thinking of these deprivation rules, all this stuff, it's interference with my body, and interference and deprivation eventually leads to overeating. And so I'm sure that everyone's had those moments when they've restricted and then they've ended up actually eating something perhaps worse or perhaps in a much higher quantity than they would have if they would have just allowed themselves that, small piece of whatever in the first place.
I have another question based on this. See, sometimes you're depriving because you have fixed notions about food, but then we also see people, because I see a lot of allergies in my practice. So somebody knows that gluten does a lot of issues. I used to get a lot of joint pain. So there was a time I absolutely couldn't touch gluten. Now I'm fine with a little bit and I know my boundaries. So I'm like, okay, I've had my thing, I'm good. So for people who are having the physical symptoms of food allergies, and would they also be opening themselves up, or how to go about it?
That's a really beautiful question. So if you know that you have an allergy to something, an intolerance, I'm going to say two things. Number one is we need to start calming the gut, because once we pull out all the non-value-based beliefs in the gut, I assure you, you're going to have a much wider range of foods that you're going to feel comfortable with. But at the same time, we need to honor where you're at right now. And if you know that if I have any gluten, I am going to, really blow up or whatever, then it's making the conscious choice and knowing that, you know what, it's not that I'm not allowed gluten or that, gluten is bad, but I'm choosing right now to avoid gluten for this particular period of time as my body heals. And it's really from a place of, it's my choice because I know how gluten makes me feel, and it's from a much more empowering place versus feeling like, oh, gluten's bad, or oh my goodness, no, gluten's restricted from my diet. My practitioner said I can't have gluten, so I can't have gluten, right? It's really stepping into making your own choices. And if those choices mean that, for me, if I have loads of dairy, I don't feel too good, right? And so I know, but catch yourself in terms of, do you need no gluten or do you need little gluten? I love how you said, you can have a little bit here and there, right? Yeah. Oftentimes we live in such a black and white society that it's like, oh my God, no gluten, right? And then, but it's like, well, what about you just slow down? Just, half the gluten and then see how your body feels and then go from there versus feeling like you need to be so rigid.
And that leads to a lot of fear-based eating. You're so right that, sometimes with allergies, and I'm like, okay, or food sensitivities, I'm like, you heal the gut, you can almost eat pretty much most things you had to give up.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't live with a lot of restrictions. I love food and all kinds, I can't live with restrictions. But when you look at, oh my God, if I eat this, I'm going to die, which you are not really going to die unless it's an anaphylactic allergy, right? But you're eliciting, you're creating a lot of fear in the system. You're creating that anxiety. You're pushing your stress hormones, and that's going to make you feel worse, and you're going to binge on something else.
Exactly. And you're not even going to enjoy it for what worth, and food is meant to be enjoyed. We have this feeling it's oh my God, it tastes good. It's so naughty of me to have something. It's no, you're the reason we have taste is so that we can choose the foods that we need, right? And so we need to really respect that and honor that. And I know that some people think, oh, but I'd only eat shit. No, if you were really, really listening to taste, you wouldn't want the like processed, croissant with like the margarine. You'd want the real, fresh croissant in France that's, gorgeous and that's gonna, you know what I mean, that you're gonna enjoy. And so, really chewing your food and really tasting it so that you can make the right choices.
Yeah. So there are a few comments. So Uttamji is saying, pay attention to eating while eating. Yes, but you need to pay attention even before you start eating because people are eating for the wrong reasons. So that's why Kiki is here to help us. Hi, Kalpen or Sejal. I don't know which of you is here. So Raj Gopal has a nice comment. So he says that he's noticed food being used as a reward or an anxiety, depression, boredom killer. So what are some alternatives? Also, how do dosha imbalances contribute to the mentality? Now, do you want to answer, Kiki, or?
I'll definitely answer the first part, and then maybe you can help me out with doshas. But okay, so here's the deal. If you're using food as a reward, that's totally so common. So first of all, don't beat yourself up about it. It's so wonderful that you are already acknowledging that, and just that clarity in itself is, congratulations for that, because that's a huge step. Here's the thing. We have other pleasure senses other than taste, right? And so food is a really nice one because it's immediate gratification. There's not a lot of things in life that I'm going to do them, it's going to feel like this, and it's going to be great, and it works every time. But you know what? Food does that, right? It's like, I know I'm going to eat this, it's going to taste like that, and it's going to make me feel good. Here's the truth. We have other pleasure senses to soften the discomfort in life. There's sound, there's touch, there's sight, right? And yes, I'm going to be honest with you, none of them are as intense as eating. Taste and eating is an incredibly intense, pleasurable experience. Just the movement of chewing, there's an intensity there, right? And so sometimes we have stack the others, and sometimes we have to gonna have some aromatherapy and listen to some music and do this, but be responsible to yourself to give yourself enough pleasure in your day, because if food is the only source of pleasure that you're getting, then obviously your body is going to start to crave it and crave it and crave it, because you need some dopamine, right? And so if you don't get enough of that, and you learn that, okay, the only way that I'm really going to feel good is when I'm eating, then what are you going to start doing? You're going to start thinking about eating all the time. But here's the truth: if you are loving what you do and your life, and so oftentimes with clients, it's about structuring their lives so that they're in the movement of their flow, and they love food, and they love their life, and also love food, but it's not until they're actually physically hungry where they're like, oh yeah, now I need to refuel because I can't focus on what I'm doing anymore. And so in the background, what I would invite this person to do is to start putting in the pieces so that they don't need to always soften the discomfort in their life with food or with, aromatherapy and walks in nature and all these things, so that their life, it doesn't always call on them to kind of, help me out, give me some pleasure. So I hope that helps. In terms of the dosha imbalances, I think you'd be the better person to answer.
Yeah. I'll go a little bit different, even more than doshas, and kind of in lines with what Kiki was saying. I'll go towards the Panchamahabhutas and maybe incorporate a little bit of doshas. So what happens with most life today is, or most people today, is we look at Vata dosh, which is out of balance for most people just because of the fast lives that we lead. We are disconnected, not paying attention. Our food timings are all over the map. Our life is all over, like we're not even sure what most of us are doing. We just keep going, completely disconnected from that yourself, and that leads to a lot of vat dosh imbalance, which can even cause a lot more anxiety or fear. Or if the vata doesn't flow freely, or there's not enough prana, you also feel depressed, or bored, or just not lively, like lethargic, and nothing matters. So when your vata is out of balance, technically, if there's too much vata dosh, people look for sweet, because the taste itself is made up of water as well as the earth element, right? And water is also an element that is connected to the rasa or the essence of life. So if you're finding beauty in art, if you're finding beauty in nature, right? If you have that rasa, you're not going to taste too much on the rasa of your taste buds or what you're getting through food. So because we disconnect ourselves from relationships, and uh, it's I believe that a lot of the times, we've been put labels on since we were growing up, and we use those labels to either hide or conform to or just beat ourselves. But if you open yourself up to choices, of also what you're going to call yourself or how you're going to be, that is extremely empowering. Right. So that is something you can definitely do. So drinking water is good because water is the element connected with emotion, right? Also your rasadhatu or your taste buds, they are connected to the water element. So having a lot of good warm water right now is going to help detox. It's going to help you flow. um, the earth element is another thing that can really help balance vata. So food is pertaining to our physical body again, which goes to annamaya kosh, which is the food sheath, which we call the body, and that is made up of the earth element. But when you have like a lot of vata imbalance, you're going to look for stability or comfort in the form of food. But maybe go out in the nature, take a walk. Even essential oils sometimes can, help bring down the intensity of those heavier emotions, right? But you have to reflect on your life from an overall perspective as to why are you using food or what's really going on. Why is the anxiety coming from? Where is the depression coming from? Why do you not feel rewarded that you have to seek food as a reward? You should be rewarding yourself for everything good that you do, and I know we don't do that, but we need to celebrate ourselves. As Kiki is saying, open up to your choices and just be happy. So Linda had
God, that was so well said, Manjiri. I'm so excited. Manjiri is being a guest host in the program that I run, the next one, and I'm so happy because everything that you said is just so aligned, and it's so interesting to see the Ayurvedic perspective to it's just everything you're saying. I'm like, yep, you're saying it in different words with different verbiage,
yeah.
and it's wow, power.
Yeah, and that's why I love the work that you do, because we use different verbiage, but it's kind of the same work we're all doing, right? It's literally the same thing we're helping with. So I'm going to look at one comment and then I'll ask you about your course as well, which is really exciting. I'm super excited to learn about the offering that Kiki has. So Linda says that I've had to comment before of someone saying they competitively eat, which is the first time I've heard of this. By saying he tried to see how much he can eat in one sitting with competition. Yeah, so see, sometimes a competition is, you need a challenge, right? So she's talking about competitive eating where a person will sit and decide how much they're eating. And there are some amazing YouTube videos. I love YouTube and I'm always on some videos. So there have been videos where people will get large amounts of foods and they'll eat and they'll try to finish it, right? See, if you're competing against your own body, it is not a good competition, right? Because no matter how much you can finish in one go, it's not doing you good, right? So maybe try to have some positive competition is what I would suggest.
And I would think that if it almost reading the comment, it almost sounds like there's this yearning to really connect with himself, because if you think about it, like food is such an intimate experience, and when we're eating, it's like an automatic hack to connect with yourself and to ground yourself. And oftentimes with binge episodes, it's because we feel so flighty, aka maybe vata, and there's this deep desperation to like bring ourselves back to the ground, to ground us. And it's almost like a paperweight, and we're taking in all of this food to get back into our body and to ground back to the earth, right? And so what that triggers for me is, if someone is obsessed with really piling it in and almost making it into this competition, it's like he's yearning for this deep connection to himself and the ground, and he's not getting it, and so therefore he's relying on excessive amounts of food.
Yeah. So the other thing what I look at is, when you're trying to finish enormous amounts of food in one go, almost gulping, there are places where, you will eat some 10 burgers and they give you the 11th one free, and all the crazy things that happen in the world. There are places in India where if you eat like a really big meal, you might not even have to pay for it, so there are um, have I lost? Oh, okay. I thought the connection was lost a little bit. Yeah, but you have to go back to your own body and see if you're actually tasting the food or you're just gulping it down, right? So always try to find that connection with yourself. And Raj Gopal says that, how his mom and granny would put him in this competition to make me eat. Yeah, so see, we've all grown up with different cultures, customs around food. I would never leave until I finish the plate, right? And I would take enormous amounts because, I like to see big, and then I would end up finishing and feeling like overtly full. But you have to learn that your body is not a dump yard where you're just going to keep dumping
Yeah,
huge
I
amounts
do
of
that
food.
exact same thing where it's like, you can be the garbage or you can put it in the garbage, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and yeah, it's interesting with different things we learn with family as well. But at the end of the day, bring yourself back to only I and my
Yeah.
stomach, right? Like only I own my stomach. There's no one else that knows what's in there, how much is in there. So only you can make the choice to when to eat and how much to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so perfect. So Rajgopal says that they would,
Thank you.
say that to make cranky kids eat. Oh yeah, yeah. We all love well-fed kids. And Linda says, oh, that makes so much sense. Thank you, Linda, for, thank you everyone for being with us live, and super exciting. I'm going to talk to Kiki about her upcoming program, and I'm also going to post the link to, where you can sign up. So can you tell us a little bit more, Kiki?
Yes, yes. So it's really exciting. I actually wasn't going to launch this program until January, but I've had so many people reach out and ask if I can do another round earlier. So I am launching another one of my women's circles where I basically teach the very structured 6-week process to how to get back in touch with your body's hunger and satiety cues. It's a small group of women. It's 10 women that I take through this process. It's obviously online. We're not meeting in person. And it's really for the woman who is ready to stop yo-yo dieting, perhaps get back to a healthy weight for them without rules, restrictions, but you're needing some support. You're feeling like, I don't know how to do it on my own. I very, white glove service, handhold you through all the specific tools and the recording element. And I do it in a group setting, not because group coaching programs are cool right now, but because the clients that I do this in a group setting, just the process is accelerated. And being in a collective of women where, we're dropping the stigma around all of this food stuff and can talk about it from a place of truth, and then from a place of, okay, let's move you forward. This isn't about unpacking all of your problems and woo woo in a circle. This is about moving you forward so that you can get back on your path and not have food consume your life. And so it opens up next month, November 16th. I interview applicants, because it's not like a program where you can just oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do it. You really do have to be committed. You have to be ready to change, and you have to be ready to put in a new perspective towards food that I walk you through. And so, the link, as you put in, it's bit.ly/Ex Perfectionist, and you can fill out that application form. And if I think that you're a good fit for the collective, then we'll schedule a chat.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing all the information. And for those listening, if you are really struggling with food and if you're tired of doing this on your own, it's always like group programs, because I've taught a few, and you have this synergy of the group. You have so much learning that you're learning. Yeah. Your learning is accelerated. You have support. You're not into this by yourself, right? So if you are someone looking for, changing, um, your dietary habits or really breaking free from the prison of diets, feel free to apply. I've shared the links in the group. It's on my YouTube as well, and it's also on my page. So feel free to reach out, and you can always reach out Kiki if you have any questions about the program, and she'll be more than happy to guide you all.
Absolutely. And this round is going to be extra special because we have you coming in at one point, and you're going to bring in the Ayurveda perspective with the program.
Yeah.
That'll be so powerful. I'm so excited.
Super excited for that as well. Yeah, I'm really, really excited. So thank you, Kiki, and thank you all our listeners. Thank you so much, Kiki, for being here. Thank you for sharing such gems of knowledge. And I'm sure everybody's going to use the hunger scale. I'm going to really tap into it now.
I still use it. It's awesome. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye for now.